should you add tax to your bookkeeping firm? In this episode today, I'm sitting down with Nick Cobos of Saga Accounting, and we chat through how he's built his firm with tax and bookkeeping and the pros and cons to both. It's a really wonderful conversation, and I can't wait for you to listen. So if you've ever had the passing thought of, should I add tax to my bookkeeping firm, or should I add bookkeeping to my tax firm? This is the episode for you. And even if that isn't a question that you've asked, we dive into lots of different things, from starting out your bookkeeping business, how to get your first clients, all the way to delegating and everything in between. So let's dive right in. Welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast. Hey, Nick, welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you? Excited to
Pretty
be
good.
here.
Yeah, I'm super stoked too. So, give our listener a little background on who you are and how you got into this wonderful world of accounting we're in.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Nick Cobos, and my accounting firm is called Saga Accounting Solutions. We're based out of Pinehurst, North Carolina, which probably doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you follow golf. It's a little golf town here in rural North Carolina. So yeah, I got into accounting completely by accident. I was an Army officer, so I graduated from college, went and was an infantry officer in the Army for close to 6 years, and had nothing to do with accounting. So towards the end of my time in the Army, I did a lot of things that were accounting adjacent. So managing inventory, a lot of spreadsheets, but nothing that was debits and credits, like truly accounting. Tangential skills, we'll say. About a year out from getting out of the Army, I'm like, okay, what do I want to do next? And while I was in the Army, I had done some real estate deals. So bought some kind of distressed properties, renovated them, and turned them into rentals. And I had done my own bookkeeping for that, but it wasn't something I considered like a skill, right? It was just something, I kind of had a little bit of experience there. And so when I was getting out of the Army, I thought, okay, I'm going to do real estate. That's what I'll do. And I'll just kind of keep doing that, and I'll do it full time. So I had actually started doing real estate. I got my real estate license. I was stationed in Alaska for most of my time in the Army. And so that's where a lot of the real estate was. I was leaving the Army from Texas, but most of my stuff was up in Alaska. So I got my last real estate license and started doing real estate in Alaska from Texas, remote. And it was going well. But my wife and I have, at the time, had two. Now we've got three little kids. And we're both from North Carolina. And so our plan was, okay, we're going to get out of the Army. We're going to go back to Alaska. And we're going to keep doing the real estate thing. And when it came time to actually do it, we had about 6 months left in the Army. It's like time to start getting everything ready and do the move. And we kind of panicked, and we were like, man, if we do real estate in Alaska and then we decide 2 years from now that, hey, we actually want to be close to family again, we're kind of screwed, because you can't pick up a real estate business and move it. And so I've got like 6 months left of getting paid, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And I kind of started doing some research, but I had to come up with something quick. And I realized I stumbled across, I forget who it was. I think it was Zach Pasquarello. I don't know if you've ever seen him on YouTube or talked to him. Okay, so he had a bookkeeping podcast or a podcast about, or a YouTube show really about his bookkeeping business. I stumbled across that, and I was like, I think I can do this. I think I can do accounting. And my accountant who had helped me, my tax accountant who had helped me do the taxes for the real estate business, was an Army guy that I went to school with. And I talked to him, and he was like, yeah, I think you can do it. And kind of gave me some pointers. And so I ground out my EA during my last 6 months in the Army, started picking up bookkeeping clients in those last 6 months. And then by the time that I was done with the Army, I was wrapped up with the Army on January 1st of 2025 of last year was my last day in the Army.
Oh, wow.
So but yeah, it hasn't been too long.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it feels like a lifetime, but it hasn't been that long. So yeah, January 1st was my last day. I had already built my bookkeeping book of business a little bit by then, because I had a 6 month kind of head start. But it was totally like figuring it out on the fly, especially on the bookkeeping side. Got out of the Army and then started as a tax intern like the next day at a CPA firm in Anchorage, and did a tax season there with them, where I'd work like three 10-hour days a week with them, and then the other, and then 3 more days a week on my own building the bookkeeping book of business. And then on April 15th of 2025 of last year, I left that CPA firm and then went full time in our accounting firm. So that's kind of like the roundabout story.
Okay. Were you working remotely for that CPA firm in Alaska?
No, so at the CPA firm, I would drive across town, and that was all in person, which honestly was great
Yeah.
because like I was coming in, I had gotten my EA, so I knew tax rules. Like I knew the rules of how things should work, but that's very different from having the hands-on skill like in the software. And it
Mhm.
was invaluable being able to, just walk over to the senior like two desks over and be like, "Hey, how do I do this?" That's also I think invaluable for bookkeeping too. But bookkeeping, I was more comfortable kind of learning on my own on the bookkeeping side just because
Mhm.
most things aren't super time sensitive. There's no deadline, right? We want to
Right.
close months and stuff, but you can go if something gets messed up, you can go back and fix it. It's not super high, you know,
Stakes.
deadline stress. Yeah, right. It's not super high stakes usually, right? Payroll can be, but yeah, for the most part, it's easier to kind of DIY. The tax, I was really grateful to have had that kind of in person experience, and definitely couldn't imagine. Probably wouldn't be doing tax if I hadn't had that in person experience.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some blessings about remote work, but there's also some pitfalls like for people who are coming up right
Yeah.
now without the ability to be in office. Like if you have the chance to do that, I say do it because you're going to learn everything so much faster.
Yeah, yeah.
So if
But
you're a beginner out there, like go get an in-person job and you'll learn a lot faster and then you can take that and run with it in your own firm.
no, for sure. But I will say, I mean, the reason I got into accounting to begin with was because I needed something that was going to be fully remote. And
Yeah.
it ended up working out because my wife and I, when we went back to Alaska, got out of the army, a few months later found out we're having our third kid. And it was like, oh, yep. But it's sooner than we'd expected. We're going back to North Carolina, right? So like if I had stuck with real estate or if I had stuck with something that wasn't remote capable, I would have been screwed. And that to me is one of the big. I'm so passionate about. I talk to like all these different accounting firm owners that I talk to. Like it's such a great time to be in accounting because
Yeah.
it's a high margin business. The cost of entry, the barriers to entry are low. I mean, you need a desk and a computer and internet connection.
Yeah. You just need
You
the
can do it
knowledge.
remote. Yeah, right. You need the skills, right? But you can do it from anywhere, and so it makes it so cool. Like I talk to all sorts of folks and see how people have set up their accounting firms to support their lifestyle. And I think we're very blessed in the accounting industry to be able to do that, where most industries don't have that flexibility. So
No. Yeah, I 100% agree. So, because you have this background in real estate, did you decide to niche in real estate or do you like walk me through all of that side of things?
that would have been a logical choice, and we definitely have a significant amount of real estate clients. I At the beginning, when I first started, there was no niche. It was like, I need clients because in 6 months, my salary goes away and I'm just going to take whatever work I can get. Plus, like, I didn't have like a lot of technical experience. But what I did find was my Army experience was all in operations. Like, I was a mid level manager my entire time in the Army. So managing like dudes and trucks and equipment, and so I quickly realized that service based, like home service type businesses, so landscaping, construction, plumber, HVAC, like that kind of stuff, I spoke their language because I
Right.
understood like the, not the trades, but
The
like,
logistics side of
yeah,
things.
just being out in the field and doing
Yeah.
stuff. But then I also had a strong background on the management and operations side. And so those kind of clients came naturally to me. But really, the initial client list came from, I'm a big Alex Hormozy guy for anybody who's heard of Alex Hormozy,
Yeah.
right? And I literally just did what the man says to do, and it worked. And I just went through my phone and I made a list of everybody whose phone number I had who either owned a business or had a relative or knew somebody that owned a business. And I just texted them and I said, "Hey, I'm doing bookkeeping. Do you know anybody that might be interested?" And that's how I got my first clients, and they just kind of were what they were, and then it kind of evolved from there.
Now, were those first clients the the people that you ended up texting, or were there people that they knew? So like once
Yeah,
removed, or like
a little bit of both. A little bit
okay,
of both. And I mean, I had a couple folks in the phone that I texted directly, yeah, that were like, yeah, man, I would love to have you do our stuff or take a look at our stuff. Most of the people I knew directly though who owned a business, I didn't pick up because most people who have established businesses were like, how long have you been doing bookkeeping? Like, I didn't pick them up at least at first. So I did get a couple, but most of the leads I got initially, I think were like one or two orders removed, where I'm texting somebody whose dad owns a whatever business, and I'm like, hey, do you know anybody? And they maybe said, oh, yeah, my dad. Or like, not my dad, but my dad has a friend,
hmm
whatever. And that's where we got the first ones. And then over time, like people who I texted and initially told me no have then trickled back. And so like people that I texted, 2 years ago now
yeah,
hit me up and say, hey, are you still doing accounting? Or they see it that I, now it's like a firm and we got employees and we got a website, right? And so they Google, and now that it's a little more legit, they come back. So
yeah. That was going to be my next question is like, what do you think is the cause of that? Do you think it's because those people that they had, referred you to or whatever came back and were like, they're amazing, Nick knows his stuff? Or do you think it's their own curiosity of like, checking out what you have going on and being like, oh, okay, now maybe, yeah.
no, I mean, I definitely think that's part of it, right? I mean, when I started, we had no track. It was just me. There's no we. It was
Right.
just me, and there was no track record. It was just like people taking a chance on me, right? But there's no Google reviews. There's no testimonials. It's just like a
hmm
guy, right? So that's definitely part of it. I also think a huge part of it for anybody who's getting started was also like my tone or my own self perception of the hardest part of getting started was not like doing the work. For me, it was like sending those texts, like the imposter syndrome of
Yeah.
saying, I'm an accountant now. And I didn't come from the accounting background. Maybe folks who have a background already in accounting softens that blow a little. I don't know.
I can
No.
vouch. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that imposter syndrome for me was brutal. And I definitely think some people, if I feel it, like other people are going to perceive that I
Absolutely.
feel it, right? And that's in turn,
Absolutely.
and especially more established and more sophisticated business owners.
Mhm.
Like if you don't believe in yourself, why should some rando believe in you? But the only way you get through that is by doing it and getting the reps. And like
Yeah.
you can sit there a million years and think about how to get over the imposter syndrome, and it'll not like you just have to do it. And so the more reps you get, yeah, it creates the credibility and the track record that it's a virtuous loop. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm assuming that you just deliver an amazing service and that's also part of it. Like it all feeds into it itself basically. Like you get the confidence to talk about it and then you actually deliver the amazing service. Then the clients are coming back to you, praising you for it, and then it continues to build your confidence and it just kind of snowballs from there.
100%. 100%. And I think, again, we're very lucky in the accounting space, at least right now, where most of the folks I talk to, and ourselves included, can kind of live off of referrals. We don't have to be, obviously, it's better if you are, but we don't have to be super sophisticated marketers or salespeople because there's such a need for the service that if you just do a good job, yeah, you're gonna get referrals and the business will grow, like in spite of
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. I was just having that discussion with my team earlier today. I was like, I don't really try and go out and market. I just wait for people to fall in my lap as referrals. And that's been fine. But I also have established a level of visibility that it feeds into that because if that referral looks me up, there is some activity online and they can kind of, gauge it that way too. So I do think that piece is still important. I don't think it's important for a bookkeeper to be posting on Instagram every day.
That's true. That's true. And I think you're 100% right
If
of
you
like
can, but
good good things come to the folks who put themselves out there. And the putting
yeah,
yourself out there is the scary part, but that's the only way that serendipity can happen is if you put yourself out there. If nobody knows you exist,
yeah.
And that's something we're super passionate about, like with the team internally, is one of our core values is delight the client. And it's something we take super seriously because the client experience with an accounting firm, that clients do not, maybe some do, most clients do not understand the work, the output of the work. So we take great pride, and we should take great care in delivering technically correct work, and that's critical. But from the client's perspective, that's not where I mean that might be half the value or a third
Right.
of the value. The rest of the value is in the interaction and how they feel working with you. Is, do you pick up the phone when they call?
Hmm.
Right? Do you answer your email? Does the work product get to them when you said it was going to get to them? Because the bar is super low. I mean, like, we have folks that come to us, and I'm like, oh, so, I always ask folks, like, why are we talking now? Like, what made you want to reach
Hmm.
out? Oh, I haven't heard from my CPA in, you know, 3 months. And it's like, that's the competition, right? But I do take it super serious. It's like, you always want to delight the client and leave the client, with a smile. And if you
Yeah.
do that, you will have no shortage of work.
Yeah. So what what do you say when people are like, yeah, but I don't have time to do that?
No, that's fair, right? And so that's the operational part. Is now it's like we have to build the systems to deliver that client experience. And I think it's tough. I think the delivery challenges change like as the firm grows, right? And so I can only really speak to my experience so far. But like at the beginning, the challenge was, it's just me. And so I'm doing everything. And so I only
Yeah.
have so many hours in the day. And unfortunately, like the only way to get through that is like you got to just grind your way through that. I mean, like it's when it's just you. I mean, you just have to put your head down and do the work.
Yeah.
As your head count grows, I think it becomes more and more about systems and about being able, yeah, just leveraging systems, being able to delegate stuff. And that's where I think having like I'm super grateful for my Army background because the initial I felt behind at the beginning from an accounting technical perspective. And so I think it took me longer than somebody who's already been in accounting. It took me longer to get started and to kind of like I was less efficient. I was less confident in my communication with the client. There was a technical learning curve there. But once I kind of broke through that, like definitely having the Army background where everything is systematized and designed for scale has been super, super helpful.
Yeah. So with that, what is your walk me through like the growth of your business, where you started out when you hired, because one of the things that you put in your little calendar when we schedule the interviews, I have
Yeah,
people list out some things they would, be able to talk about. And you said aggressive delegation. So my assumption is you have a team at this point.
yeah.
So kind of give us some context of where your business is at now. Like at what point did you hire and what are the things that you've delegated?
For sure. Yeah. So now I'll tell you like kind of where we're at now, and then I'll kind of back up and explain like the different kind of phases. But right now we're a team of five, including me. So it's me. I've got here in the office with me. I've got our senior bookkeeping. What we call like are we're trying to get away from saying bookkeeping just for internally like for our marketing and positioning, but it's bookkeeping, right? So we've got our senior like client accounting services accountant who does all the review on the bookkeeping client accounting services side. We have kind of a flex player. We hired her as a tax intern halfway through this past tax season, and now she's doing tax admin and some accounting work. She's here in the office with us as well. And then I've got two teammates who are offshore and remote. One is a senior, also a senior, well, she was a senior accountant at her previous firm. Now she's staff for us, but she's got the senior kind of skill level. So
Mhm.
she used to manage people. Now she's just doing production work, but I mean, obviously super competent. And then we just hired a senior tax preparer as well. So that's kind of the team of five. Our kind of phases of growth. My first hire teammate was a friend of mine from high school, my buddy Matt, who didn't have any accounting experience either. He came from an IT background. Um, but I got to the point. I was still working part time at the accounting firm in Anchorage, and I couldn't keep up work. I was working like all 7 days of the week, and like I couldn't keep up. And so I reached out to him, and I was like, "Hey, man, you want to learn accounting?" And got him in and got him to speed pretty quick. And he started doing books, and then through aggressive delegation, kind of delegated things to him faster or as fast as he was able to kind of retain it. And now he's doing all our review and yeah, kind of fully managing the bookkeeping side of the business. And I really now just do tax and advisory services for clients. Our next hire after Matt was an admin. So we hired a part-time admin. She was remote. She was working, we hired her at 10 hours a week and very quickly needed her like almost half time. We had her for about a year and then she just had competing obligations. She had young kids and she couldn't keep like the demand, like, yeah, our time demand was growing. So we couldn't, it wasn't sustainable for her anymore. So she left a few months ago, but she was incredible. And then we brought on our offshore teammate, the first bookkeeper in January, and then our tax intern in February. And then, like I said, we just now hired our senior tax preparer. So it's been pretty quick.
What are some of the things that you initially started delegating, and what are some of like where do you focus your time now? Because
Yeah.
it's two questions.
Yeah. So I think the easiest place to start delegating for me, I mean, it's a constant process, right? So the process itself doesn't really change. Like I look at the calendar and I look at all the things I'm doing, and I especially want to look at things that are more repetitive, not repetitive, but things that happen more often. Because it's easier to systematize something that happens daily versus something that happens once a year, right? So I start with the things that are the most frequent, and that are the simplest, right? And start with those things, and then create a system. And to me, like a system is just a checklist, right? And then try to do it only using the checklist that you created, which will help you figure out all the problems with your checklist. And then once you've done the thing that you normally just do because you know how to do it with your checklist, and you did it by only following the checklist, like now you have a system and you're ready to delegate it to somebody. I think that's like the correct way to do it. And that's what we continually kind of try to iterate and do. That said, we've grown pretty quickly. And so, that to me, like that's the way delegation should occur. At the same time, like I think it's super important to if you're growing a team to hire like A players and hire people that are interested in growth and want to grow. And we also have had times where I just hand something off and it's half baked and it's like, hey, you need to figure this out. But things that you hand off in that manner should not be like critical components of the business or things that have critical consequences to clients, obviously.
Right.
Those are more like internal kind of functions. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the delegation process. We call them KRAs, key results areas. All our teammates have them. And this might be helpful for folks. So one thing we did early on, right, was we kind of mapped out an org chart for what we think the firm should look like when it's quote unquote done. And in my mind, done, the tax firm I worked at in Anchorage was 25 people roughly. And so in my mind, like that's the biggest accounting firm that I could like envision because that's what I've seen, right? And so I kind of mapped out, okay, if we had 25 people, how would I organize it, right? And so I mapped that out and like labeled all the different jobs. And then we gave each of those jobs kind of key results, right? And the key results area is literally just like, what is the job? What does winning look like? And like, what are the responsibilities that go into that job? And the thing is, at the time when we did this exercise, it was just me and Matt. So there's only 2 people, but there's 25 jobs on the board, right? And so we said, okay, we've got 25 roles to divvy up. Well, really, it was probably closer to like 15 roles because some of them are duplicates, right? You have multiple of one. You have multiple bookkeepers, let's say. But we had 15 roles and 2 people, and it's like, okay, Matt, was going to wear a bookkeeping hat, and I'm going to wear the other 14 hats. And then as I kind of develop, like, okay, I think Matt's got the bookkeeping thing down. All right, now Matt's going to manage all our IT because he's got an IT background. So he's going to be the IT guy hat, take that hat on. And then it's like, okay, now Matt knows how to review. He's going to wear the reviewer hat for these clients. and then I'll still review those clients. And then we have an admin, and she's going to wear the admin hat. And so by doing that work up front and building out all these jobs, even though it was me doing them all, building that out up front made it a lot easier to at a high level, right? It's not all the minutia of the day-to-day, but at a high level, plug people in and say, hey, here's your job, right? And then going back to the checklist thing for like all the day-to-day, how you actually execute it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The org chart thing is one area that I think people get like a little hung up on because it's like you are doing lots of different roles in your position. So if you're going to map out an org chart, you basically need to separate out those roles instead of having it like one person. So
Right.
the way that you described it was really awesome. Maybe we can do some visuals on that for the podcast, for the YouTube
Yeah,
video.
somewhere I've got a picture of like the first one I did, which is like my handwriting is like third grade level handwriting. It's like a picture of
Perfect.
chicken scratch, but yeah.
But yeah, so you may have already said this, but remind me, so is Matt still, because you guys have the podcast between two firms, is he still, part of the firm? Is he,
Yeah.
okay, is he doing his own thing? Okay, cool. So
Yeah, no,
still
he's with us, and like I say, he runs right now. Matt runs the entire client accounting services side of the business, and so I at this point I'm not really involved in the day to day or the month to month of client accounting services. I spend my time doing tax returns,
Mhm.
sales, marketing, and then like management, like
Yeah.
one-on-ones and team meetings and that kind of thing. But yeah, the Matt is kind of running that side, and then I'm still the I run the tax side, but now with our kind of senior tax preparer, the time demand of the tax side is kind of starting to go down, which is good. That's what we
Yeah.
needed. So.
Yeah. Do most of your bookkeeping clients use you guys for tax? What does that split look like?
Yeah, so revenue wise, the firm is 45% tax, 55% books, or client accounting services. When I say books, or CAS, or I kind of use them interchangeably. I'm talking month end closes. We don't do payroll, but we do payroll support, which is
Right.
basically like we're in your gusto and we set it up for you, and then if something breaks, we fix it. But don't
Yep.
call me on at 3 p.m. on Friday and ask me if I've run payroll, right? So we do that. We'll do bill pay. We'll do for some folks we do bill pay. We do advisory under that hat. That's the only piece of the accounting side of the business that I do still is the
Okay.
advisory calls.
And is that
Yeah, I think
because they're so like, are your advisory calls with like tax integrated into that tax strategy or all of
that's
the above?
definitely no, that's definitely a piece of it. And that's something wonky that just kind of happened that we're now fixing
Okay.
for this next season. The issue is that like in our business, the accounting, the bookkeeping is on a monthly cadence,
Mhm.
right? And so we sign annual contracts or engagements, but they bill monthly. And then the tax work is all annual contract, right? And an annual kind of battle rhythm. And so what happened was we kind of created this weird thing where we were offering advisory on the bookkeeping side, which was designed more to be like business
Operational.
advisory.
Yeah.
Yeah, operational, right? But then I'm also the tax person. And so then we have tax advisory on the tax side, which is like we meet, once or twice a year, we talk taxes, maybe we do a projection. And then those lines got blurred really fast because it's like, oh, I'm paying for bookkeeping advisory and we're on an advisory call and I'm going to ask tax questions and I'm like, because it's Nick, right? He's going to be answering my question, and so it gets really weird. Like you can't like human
Yeah.
paywall yourself and be like, no, no, no. Like I can only answer bookkeeping questions. I can't answer tax. So we're changing the way we structure that to bundle all of that together going
Like
forward.
if you
But
opt in
yes,
for advisory, it's both and it's going to be a
yeah,
higher price if you're a tax.
right,
Yeah.
right, and we're trying to get away really from doing tax for anybody that we don't do books for on the entity side. So specifically like business tax, because business tax really a lot of it just ends up being bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And folks bring us these dumpster fire books, and it's like, hey, do the tax return, and it's not a game that I want to play anymore. So yeah, definitely, we're trying to move towards being full service and saying we'll do just books or we'll do books and tax. but we're not going to just do business tax and not do your books.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great boundary to have. Are you doing personal taxes for people that don't have businesses?
Yes, and that's also something that we're trying to get away from.
Yeah.
And that just happened. I mean, the town we're in, Pinehurst, North Carolina, it's a relatively high income, like relative to the surrounding area. There's a lot of older folks, a lot of retirees here, and that are kind of higher income, higher net worth type clients. And during tax season, we just started getting calls and people finding us on Google saying, "Hey, you do tax." And at first, it was hard to turn down because it's like, oh, we can make a quick 1,000 or 2,000 bucks or whatever on doing on doing this 1040, this individual tax return. But after tax season, we did the math. So it was definitely like it was definitely good. And we've got a bunch of those clients. After our tax season, though, we sat down, we did the math. And we calculated out kind of based off our churn and our average pricing. We calculated like the lifetime value of different types of clients.
Mhm.
And we realized that an individual tax client, well, the opposite way. We realized that a business client where we're doing the business's books, business tax, and the owner's taxes, that client is worth, it was like 14 and a half times what an individual tax client, like just an orphan 1040, was
Right.
worth. But it's the same amount, it's the same
Of
number of
effort.
client relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like if I have 10 individual tax clients, that's 10 people pinging me with questions and with this and that. Versus on the business side, it's more work, but it's not 10 times more work,
Right.
not 14 times more work. And so
Especially
from the
if you have all the like the business relationship throughout the year and you have
right,
more like more knowledge of
100%. Yeah, and we're able to provide more value too
Mhm.
because I mean that's the thing too. And it is like if I have a business owner, right, if I've got somebody who's just starting out and they're self-employed and they're doing $100,000 a year, right? And whether it's through bookkeeping efficiencies or identifying efficiencies by having clean books and doing advisory, or whether it's through tax kind of planning or tax kind of stuff, if I can save them 1%, right, that's $1,000 for them. If I have a business that's doing $1 million a year and I can save them 1%, right, like that's 10 grand. And so which client's worth more? Right? Like it's not 10 times more work to do that for $1 million business. And then I mean, there's levels to the game, right? So then you have like, well, what about a $10 million business? And so what we find is like we're blessed in accounting where most of the work is profitable because it's just labor to deliver. But you only have so much bandwidth. Most accounting firms are supply constrained, not demand constrained. Like we have more work than we can do. And so when we get to the point where there's more work than we can keep up with, we have two options, which are to grow or to raise prices and focus on the higher value clients. And growth is great, but you can only grow so fast, kind of to the point earlier about like
and maintain
delegation
quality.
and right, and maintain quality, right, and your
Yeah.
brand and your reputation for doing good work. Right. And so that was kind of a big aha moment for us was, hey, like this stuff that comes in the door, like it's great in the short term and but in the long term, it's not the business we want to build. We want to focus on the full service, like we're your back office and we do everything for you because
Right.
we can deliver better results to the client, and as a result of that, we can bill more, and it's better for me as the owner, it's better for the team, and it's better for the client.
What percentage, if you know this off the top of your head, what percentage of your bookkeeping clients also use you for tax?
That's a great question. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't. I would guess, kind of thinking through it, I'm going to say probably 75% or
Okay.
80%. Now, this time last year, it was probably like a third of them. But then we do a great job on the bookkeeping side.
Okay.
And we've had a lot of folks that, when we brought them on as bookkeeping clients, they already had a tax person, or they were complex enough where I was like, I'm not taking this on right now.
Yeah.
because I don't, I'm already like at capacity on bookkeeping, and I don't have time to figure this out right now. So I would say no. But then what happens is you do a great job in the bookkeeping. Most of the competition is like slammed and behind and doesn't, right. And so then folks are reaching back out to us and saying, hey, like, please, can you do the tax?
Yeah.
And so then we've kind of taken over the course of this past tax season and this summer, we've taken back a lot of the bookkeeping clients we weren't doing the taxes for. So at this point, it's almost all of them. There are a couple holdouts that we don't do it for. And then there's a couple, especially the larger clients. We have a couple larger clients where they've asked us to, and we have declined just because there's some unique stuff there that's not in our wheelhouse, and it's not core
Right.
competencies, and they'd be better served with a specialist. But for the most part, we've taken them all.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head, like, is the tax piece, like, does that piece make it more profitable, or is it the bookkeeping that makes the tax work profitable? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
a
No, 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 no. So they're kind of intertwined because what happens is I think the tax work is generally higher margin. Apples to apple, like an hour of tax work, we make more as a firm than an hour of bookkeeping accounting work. But that's not necessarily a fair comparison because the tax work, most of the tax work, happens once a year and it happens in a more condensed window. And so it might be that the tax work is more profitable if operational constraints or if delivery wasn't a constraint and you just have the choice between would I rather sell an hour of tax or sell an hour of accounting. And we don't sell hourly, but just, as an example, well, I'd want to do more tax. But the problem is when the real world of like tax season and deadlines and capacity, right, doesn't work that way. And so the tax work is more profitable, apples to apples. But like holistically, I prefer the bookkeeping work because it's billed monthly. So we get nice recurring revenue out of it. It's stable. So it's easier to deliver. Like it's easier to build a team
right?
for accounting, client accounting service,
Easier to
bookkeeping.
scale.
Yeah, versus the tax. And it's also, I don't want to say lower skill because that's definitely not always true, but it's easier to train people to do the accounting
Right.
versus the tax because there's so many one-offs and like contextual things where like yes it's always this except for when it's not in
Yeah.
tax that it takes a longer
It's
it takes longer to train people and it costs more to get the talent, which is a constraint, especially like at our current size. It's a constraint to how
right.
quickly we can grow that side. So yeah, I think tax is more profitable, but the
Those
perfect
other
scenario is to
factors.
have both.
Yeah.
The other factor too is if you're doing the books and you do them well, the business tax returns are a breeze. But you still bill full price for them because you're still doing the work. You're going to bill full price, but a lot of the work can get preloaded into throughout the year of doing the accounting. And so it makes when you do both under one roof, it's another kind of virtuous cycle. They make each other more profitable because we
Right.
can bill more for the accounting because we have full context of your tax situation. And then we can bill the same amount for tax and be more profitable because the books are already clean.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing I'm asking these questions because all the time I get students that are building a bookkeeping business and wondering, should I add tax? And it may make sense for some people if your background is in tax and you
Yeah.
can properly oversee that and you feel confident in providing that. If you don't have years and years of experience in tax, I don't recommend adding tax. Keep it separate, focus on the bookkeeping. And I will say this because I went down
Yep.
this rabbit hole of wondering, like, because I have lost clients that want to just have their bookkeeping done by their tax firm under one
Mm-hmm.
roof. And like I went down the rabbit hole of should we add tax? And I went through an entire cost analysis and everything of what it would take for me to run a tax firm and I have a couple years of tax experience from 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
More than 10 years at this point. And even though I have a CPA license, I would still have to hire somebody to run the tax side of the firm,
Yeah.
thereby making it a loss. It would be
Yeah.
years to gain a
Before you.
profit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to do the analysis and analyze the numbers to figure out if it makes sense for you. Like for you, it made sense because you have the knowledge.
But see, I think, frankly, looking back on it, I think our firm would be bigger, would be larger in revenue and profit probably if I hadn't done tax yet. And so
Interesting.
I think I fell into the trap of so I just finished talking about how the tax work is more profitable and how it's
Right.
nice because it makes the bookkeeping work more profitable too. And all those things are true. But what you said is so true, which is tax, it just takes longer to learn it.
Right.
And I have learned we take pride on doing good technical work, but I am by no I mean I have at this point like 2.5 years of tax experience. Right. So like I'm not a 10-year tax guy. And it's definitely like I said, we take pride on doing good work, but the way we do that good work is we're very selective with the size and complexity of clients that we bring in. And so to my point earlier, like you have to know, I think in accounting too, but especially in tax, you have to know when it's not when to say no, when to pass. Yeah, you don't want to be learning on someone else's dime for sure.
Right.
So that's one piece of it. And the second piece of it is like it takes us longer. It takes us longer to get projects that somebody who's got 10 years of experience could knock out in 4 hours. Maybe it takes us 6 or 7 hours because we spend 2 hours researching something and trying to go down this rabbit hole because we're like pretty sure we have the right answer, but we have to find something in the code that backs it up. And like that's time and money that's gone. My vision was like we're gonna do the whole thing and we're gonna be like a back office and we just do everything for people, one stop shop.
Mhm.
That was kind of the vision. Looking back, I think the faster and more efficient way to do it would have been to say we only do bookkeeping. And when we get to $1 million a year of bookkeeping and I've got the margin to just bring on a tax manager, I'll just do that. And I'll never do that. That's frankly what I'm trying to do now. Is like I'm trying to get myself out of tax as fast as possible because again, I think I do a good job. My clients think I do a good job. We've had no issues so far. We take pride in doing good work, but I'm the bottleneck.
Yeah.
I'm slow. There's definitely people out there that can do the tax better than I can. And I'm trying to get to the point where I can bring one of them in as fast as possible.
See, and that's where I was, and I did the analysis of what that would cost, and then bringing in someone that isn't that senior, that's also still learning, I would then have to hire another CPA to review their work.
Right.
And ultimately, I'm still the one vouching for it because it's my
Right.
license.
It's right. Right.
I
100%.
was not willing to take that risk.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of late nights and a lot of like over budget projects because of that. And so for sure, like I totally agree with your advice to folks. I think I wouldn't going back, like if I could talk to myself 2 years ago, I would say just stick to bookkeeping. You can grow a big ass firm just doing client accounting services. You don't need the tax, and then you can buy the tax once you get to that point. It's really two businesses with two separate sets of operational processes, and it's easier to scale one than to try to scale two at the same time. For
It
sure. And
makes
I
sense.
wouldn't even consider touching tax if you don't have tax experience at a tax firm.
Right.
Like not a game you want to play. Definitely not a game you want to play. And I
Yeah.
think I was on the lower end of the amount of experience you would want to have before doing it. But yeah, for sure. Like I've talked to a couple of folks that are like, "Oh, I'm thinking about getting my EA and starting to do tax," and I'm like, "Don't. Like, go work
Just
at a
focus
tax
on
firm."
growing and scaling what's already working.
Yeah,
And if your bookkeeping firm is not working and that's why you're thinking about adding tax, you have some
fix
issues to
it.
fix
Yeah,
first.
fix it first. Right, right,
Don't
100%.
pile more on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I always start these interviews not knowing where we're going to go, but I love how the conversation developed. I have one kind of like rapid fire question for you that
Yeah.
just out of curiosity, where did you come up with the name Saga?
Like I said, I was still in the Army. I've got 6 months left on payroll before I'm on my own, and I knew I wanted to do my own thing. And so it was very stressful. Like I've got two young kids, and it's like I got 6 months to deliver. And so I literally just went in a room and I put a 20-minute timer on my phone and said at the end of 20 minutes, like I'm gonna have a name for this thing because I could waste 3 days thinking about a name and it just doesn't matter. Nobody cares. And so I sat down with ChatGPT with a 20-minute timer on, and I think I told it like, give me a list of names that are like available in aren't registered in Alaska and have available URLs or domains and aren't trademarked and meet some other criteria, like for professional services type firms. And it gave me like a list of like 100 things, and I went through it and just picked what I thought was the best one, which was Saga Accounting. So, and then Matt, I happen to be wearing the polo. Matt made our little logo, which people like the logo. Matt did it. Like, I had somebody do it on Fiverr for me, and they gave me like the V1, and then Matt looked at it, like, I can make it better, and then came up with it. So yeah, don't spend a lot of time worrying about the name. Like, it just doesn't matter. Go sell if you're starting.
The logo, is that a boat ship?
It's a Viking ship, and Matt, we were in Alaska at the time, and so Matt put like the Alaska flag, the Big Dipper on the sail. You can't really see it in the.
Okay, the sail almost looks like an abacus from here.
That's. I'm gonna say that was the intention. I'm gonna say I thought of that, and that was the intention. Yes, it's very deep. It's very deep and meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That was not what I was expecting. I thought there was going to be some deep hidden meaning to.
No, and it's funny you ask, because I've had a ton of people, like literally, I went to a conference a few months ago and I was wearing one of these polos, and I had like 4 people ask me, "Where'd you come up with the name?" And everybody's like, "Oh, okay, like ChatGPT. Oh, nice, you know."
You're gonna have
that's
to
the
just
truth.
make up a different story.
Yeah, make up a cooler story for sure.
Just keep embellishing it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. If someone wants to connect with you, they should definitely go listen to your podcast called Between Two Terms. And where's the best place for anyone to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think it's Nick Cobos, or maybe Nick Cobos 19.
We'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah, there you go. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I don't check it as often as I probably should, but I'll check. If you shoot me something on LinkedIn, I'll see it within a week or 2. So.
Oh, that's better than me. I check mine like once a month, if that.
Scroll through all the salespeople trying to sell me stuff, and then.
Oh my goodness! And then answer. I mean, I stopped even looking at people's comments on my posts because we schedule some stuff that goes on all the platforms, and it's just AI responses.
Yeah, right. LinkedIn is funny because it's just everybody's AI talking to everybody else's AI. It's just the bots talking to each other.
It's the robot social media.
Yeah,
you want your robots to connect? Go to LinkedIn. All right, Nick. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I super appreciate it, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who helps make this podcast possible. Content and interviews are produced by me, Serena Shoup. Our intro and outro music is written and performed by my brother, Ian Gilliam. Editing is also by Ian using his awesome sound engineering skills along with Descript software. Hosting and publishing is by Buzzsprout. And you can check out the show notes for links to all of these amazing resources and resources mentioned in the episode.
Be ambitious.